What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday night to you. That's when I'm recording this. Maybe this finds you over the weekend. Hope it finds you really well. Welcome into another episode of the Browns Film Room. I'm Jacob, your host for today's festivities. We'll be going over the last of the Cleveland Browns draft picks this year, and Ohio State center 6th-round pick, Luke Wypler. Just a reminder, next week we will do Lonnie Phelps. The week after that, Mahmoud Diabate, the two UDFAs that you guys told me you wanted to see in the film room. So we'll get those guys fired up in the next couple of weeks as we try to bridge the gap in the dead period until we get to training camp at the end of July. Guys, we are brought to you as always by our friends over at Homage Apparel. I got the classic Brownie the Elf going on down here. Checking the links down below. You can there's a link right there to Homage, best vintage apparel company on the business. They're so soft, comfortable. Trust me, go get you some Homage for what I think is going to be a great Brown season. Or you get some Guardian stuff, or you can get some Ohio State stuff, some Cavs stuff. You can get all that stuff. Go check them out. Link down in the description down below. If you want to bet and be a degenerate gambler like me, check out our friends over at BetJack. Also a link down in the description down below. So if you're going to do it with a local Ohio-based company, and that's BetJack. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining us. Consider hitting that subscribe button, giving me a thumbs up on this video. It helps us out a ton. If you want to support the channel, you can join the channel membership for $2.99 a month. We got some really cool exclusive perks coming for those guys as well. If you hadn't heard, I'm doing a charity fundraiser in which I will be shot with a paintball gun for every $50 we raise for Project Sanctuary, which aims to help military families heal. There's a link in the description down below if you want to click on that. We're raising money for the rest of the month of June, and that will go down in July. We're already up to 5 shots, so we'll see how that goes. All right, guys, let's jump into it. I'll talk you through my notes here on Luke Wypler before we go into the actual film here. I like Luke Wypler quite a bit. Count me among the people that are surprised he was in the 6th round, almost fell out of into the 200s. He was picked 190. I think there's some reason for that. We're going to get into that in just a second. But when I watch his tape, I don't see a 6th rounder, except for the fact that he's kind of pigeonholed. So we'll get to that in just a second. Like I said, I think watching him, he kind of looked like a 4th rounder, 5th rounder, still a day 3 guy, but I think a little bit earlier talent-wise. I think there's some concerns here and there with play strength and whatnot. And I think that kind of has him, tumble a little bit down into pick 190. But hey, the Cleveland Browns will take it. Listen, I have play strength concerns with him. He's not a mover, not in the run game. And by that, I mean moving people, not that he can't move, because he is pretty athletic and he can move pretty well in space. And we'll talk to that and some highlights for that when we get into the film here in just a few minutes. He's not a mauler like Wyatt Teller, for example. Wyatt Teller is what I call a mover. I know that I don't use like really good, smart technical terms when I talk about offensive linemen, but when I'm talking about play strength, I'm talking about the ability to get your hands on a guy and move him. Now, can he prevent a guy from being able to go through him and get to the ball carrier? 100%. Does it all the time. But he's just not an elite, super strong athlete that can just get him and move him out of the way. He will get there and he will hold his ground. He's not going to give up much ground. He's athletic enough to where if they try to do some of those, he can move around, that sort of thing. He's just not going to get the guy out of the way. And that's kind of some things that you want to see in terms of a run blocker. And he's just not there yet. And hey, a couple years in a strength and conditioning program in the NFL, maybe he does get there. He has some size concerns. I think he's only a center. I think that has a lot to do with it. And what I mean by that is I don't think he can play guard. Same thing as Nick Harris, shorter arms, smaller players, some play strength things. Even if he gets more strength and works on his technique, which I think is what he needs to, and he's in the right place for that, I just don't think the size will ever allow him to be an effective guard. I think he just needs to stay at center. That's pigeonholing him. That's kind of where I think he gets where he kind of gets put into the 6th round range, just because he can only play one position, whereas now you really want these guys to be able to play center, guard, or both tackles, or both guards. Like if you can play both guards and not center, it's okay, because it's still 2 positions. But if you're only center, that's one of the 5 positions. And it's hard to kind of put someone on your fill up a roster spot for somebody that's all they do. And I think that's why Wypler's a 6th round pick. I think he gets out of his stance really quick. I think you'll see it here. Sometimes everybody's going to have reps where they don't, but he snaps that ball and he's up, ready, and he's got his hands up. He's up in his position. He's ready to, get into his pass set or lunge forward and get the guy if he's in a run play or whatever. I think he gets from the 3-point stance, snap the ball up and ready to do his job. I think he does that really quickly on a good one, at a good rate. His pad level, when he has his pad level right and he plays with leverage, that's when he's at his best. Like I said, he's not a mover, but you'll see him anchor in against Jalen Carter of all people. You'll see some of that here in just a second. But when he gets down, he plays with the right pad level, and he gets his hands up under their shoulder pads, he locks in on him. And though he's not going to move him out of the way, they're not going to get through him. They're not going to get around him. They're going to be there. They're going to lock up for a while, and that's what it's going to be. I think he moves vertically really well. So if you see, and you'll see it some in this, as you move the pocket one way or the other, not just moving the pocket, but moving the line in run fit. If his guy is not in alignment, it's a linebacker, and he needs to climb to that second level and get up there and get his hands on them. He does that really well. I have some concerns with his lateral movement side to side when he's pulling, like really pulling, like trying to get outside of the tackle, not just going straight up to a linebacker, trying to get out on there. Sometimes I just don't think he has the athleticism. He's a good athlete, but he's not an elite athlete at the position. And sometimes I just don't like what I see from there. But he really held Jalen Carter in check. And I understand Jalen Carter had a lot going on mentally off the field and all that good stuff, and probably wasn't 100% against Luke Wypler and Ohio State in that that playoff game. But Luke Wypler held his own up and down against who a lot of people thought was the most talented player in the draft. And then I just think he's a really smart player. He's a smart player that's always looking for work and always playing through the whistle. If you followed me for any amount of time, you know that's something I really value, is these guys that are going to go 110 miles an hour, give you every bit of effort they can, every snap, always looking for work. Even if the work is just chipping guys and double teaming, but he's always a very intelligent player, understands his protections, and I think he does a pretty good job as kind of being the quarterback of the offensive line. All right, guys, let's get into the film. Get it up here on the screen for you. Go over about 13 plays like we always do. We do a couple, about 13 to 15 plays on these shows. All right, so Luke Wypler, he'll be number 53. You'll see him here right in the middle of the screen. And see, this is what I'm talking about. You see how he goes kind of high? He kind of stands straight up. Those are some concerns I have, longevity, because some of these more athletic players are going to be able to slip this and kind of get through him. And I think he goes straight up, but he locks in on him, just keeps going. And also a hell of a throw here by CJ Stroud, just throws a dot on this play. But like the thing I said, like he's going to go straight up, but he's still going to have good leverage in this play. He's going to get his hands where he needs to get his hands. He's going to lock up, and you're just not going through him. And he's trying to get around him, and he continues with him. Maybe there's a hold there, maybe sometimes. But if they don't call it, it doesn't count, right? And in this play, I think is really nice. Let me get it to where I can show it up here, because I think it does a really good job. Somewhat normally edit that part out, but I wanted you guys to see that dot. So in this situation, this is something I talked about, him climbing vertically and getting to the second level to play with these linebackers. You see number 8 here being the one that he's going to go up against. That's a big, long, rangy linebacker. In most cases, if you're an offensive lineman, you expect to probably be at a disadvantage athletically with a lot of these linebackers. Just not that you're not a great athlete, but typically most linebackers are more athletic than your interior offensive line. It might not be, but you get my point. You're going to see Wypler break down and make sure that he has a big, wide, sturdy base to make sure this guy doesn't go around him or through him. And then as he moves to him, you can see him, just the way he opens his hips to make sure that this guy doesn't go around him. And you just see him here. Then he gets his hands on him, takes care of him. Obviously, eventually he loses the guy, but he wins the rep. Here's just another situation of, if you try to go through Luke Wypler because you think he's not the strongest center in football, he plays with really nice base and steady leverage, and he understands. We talk about anchoring on the defensive side. I think he anchors on the middle of this offensive line, and you're just going to see him just He's just going to keep him in front of him, and he's just going to keep him in front of him, and he's going to just lock him up. He's not moving him in, and I know it's a pass play, but he's just going to lock him up. He's going to get his hands where his hands need to be, and that's something I really do think. He's got some technical things with his pads and his footwork, his pad level and his footwork, but man, I just love the way he locks. He just locks players up, and I love it. And here's just an example here of looking for work. I said that a lot. I said that earlier about some of the things I really like about Wypler is his ability to look for work. You would think this is going to go here, and so, well, who's he gonna block? And he gets back, and he's pulling. He's like, oh, I got to get out here. Well, I guess not really looking for work. I'm stupid, and this play is not him looking for work. That is his assignment. Yeah, but you can see him get out there. And like I said, sometimes when he's pulling and he's going all the way wide, trying to get out here outside of the numbers, I got concerns. But he understands his assignment, and he understands how to get there. And that's Jalen Carter, locks up with him. I know that CJ gets sacked, but his assignment, his man didn't make a play. Again, not a mover. He's not moving him away, and I get it, the run's going out this way. But he's got his guy locked up. He's not making a play. He's got to be able to be a little bit more, he's got to add some strength so he can move some, because you need to be able to do that. But he does his hand placement. He fights through it. Eventually the guy does get over there, but it's just an example there. Just watch him through that, just all the way through to the ground. If you go straight at Luke Wypler, he's not concerned. Play through. Plays over. There he's here. I'm just going to lock up on this guy. Just he gets a little bit of help there, but he understands it, And I just think he just provides just really high quality pass blocking, as you can see. He's just not consistently giving up pressures or sacks. I don't think he gave up a sack. Let me pull that number up for you real quick, because you're watching this tape and you're like, yeah, I would like him to move people, be a little bit better in his run fits, but he's coming into a system. He allowed 1 sack and 7 hurries this year. But in 13 games of 2021, he allowed no sacks. So he's played in 26 games the last 2 seasons. He's allowed 1 sack. And you're seeing the Browns start transitioning to throwing the ball more with Deshaun Watson. And this is a really good pass blocking center. On Jalen Carter here, just locks him up. Lock up Jalen Carter. Just locking him up. Get your hands on him. And just play through it. Get your hands on him. Use your technique. If you're not the biggest and strongest guy, then you got to be perfect technician. And that's what I think Luke Wypler is with his hands. I just still would like him to be a little bit more consistent with his pad level. Looking for work, gets vertical, drives this guy out of the play. Looking for work, finds him, puts him on the ground, climbs to the second level, just locks up his guy. He's not getting him out of the way, so he's not, as Jalen Carter again, not getting him out of the way, but just there he is. Now he finds some work. And there you go. That is the film on Luke Wypler. So, man, I think the pad level and his footwork, he's a technician with his hand placement. I know I've said a lot of confusing things when talking about Wypler, because I think some of his technical things needs fixed in terms of his pad level. But, man, he really understands how to play with leverage. He just needs to be more consistent at it in the run fits. I think his technique as a pass blocker is really good. And he just understands where to put his hands, and he's not going to be elite and drive guys all over the field, but he's just not going to let his guy make the play in the backfield. He's going to pass protect. A lot of things to clean up as a run blocker, but as a pass protector, I think he's going to be a pretty good player. If he has to get thrown into duty this year, I think he can hold his own. I think the Browns will feel comfortable with him as the backup to Ethan Posick. Guys, we appreciate you so very much for hopping in here on today's episode. these Brown film rooms are really fun for me to make. I can't wait to talk to you guys again. Next week, we'll do Lonnie Phelps, the UDFA from Kansas. And so if you guys want anything else done in these film rooms, shoot it down in the comments below, or on Twitter at Roachism13. You can hit me up there as well. Guys, thank you so much. We will talk to you again next week. As always, go Browns.